If you're tuning in from the US, probably you're in the morning. So good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, whichever part of the world you're joining us in this Medicine Seminar of the year 2024. So we are happy to have you here, and we do hope you learn a lot from the presentation of Dr. Elena. And we are good to have her in our midst this evening as well, because her topic is something which is very, very important for those of us who are in our PhD programs. Sometimes you get confused whether you want to leave the academia because you've lived your 3 years, 4 years, five in the US, 6 years life, within the academia. And with that, you feel at home and don't want to move away. Whereas some are already in postdoc, and at some point, they feel like they are stuck. They can't get tenure and they can move to the industry. So this kind of talk is very, very important because she can share highlights on how you can actually start planning if you're still within the PhD, or if you are in the postdoc, or even in another career or a tenured academic in the academia and you want to move to the industry. You'll be able to pick one or two guides from Dr. Elena from her experience, and that will be very, very useful for each and every one of us. But before I progress, I just want to introduce Dr. Elena. We all have seen this picture in the flyer, although the background was cropped, but at least you can see Dr. Elena in her research mode as a scientist, which is very, very fantastic. Just talking about being in the lab and also some of the educational profile of Dr. Elena, one I'm going to pick is that of the PhD, in which Dr. Elena did PhD in immunology at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. One thing that is beautiful about this institute is I don't know how many of you that have heard about Nobel Prize. So if you've heard about Nobel Prize, the Nobel Assembly, which actually reviews and determines who and who is awarded Nobel Prizes, are actually located within these institutes, which means it's a prestigious one, meaning we are lucky to have Dr. Elena, who finished her PhD there, to talk to us about this kind of topic this evening. She has also won Franson grants during her PhD. And also in terms of her research interest, she looks at how, for those of us who are not from the science background, is about looking at some cells within our blood that helps to actually protect us from foreign agents. But in some cases, those cells actually try to attack us as well. So Dr. Elena is looking at if those cells are associated with some skin diseases such as psoriasis or vitiligo. I'll show a couple of pictures of those diseases later on to see if she'll be able to find probably a target in inhibiting such activities so that those who suffer from such diseases can be managed better than we do at the moment. Career paths, at least you all know she's talking about moving from the academia to the industry. So we should be open-minded that, okay, this must be an entrepreneur for someone who talks about industry. So she's involved in entrepreneurship and recently built up a business, which, like she mentioned earlier this evening, they will be launching that on Tuesday next week, which is very, very fantastic. I hope she can send us some links. So for those of us who have got time, we can join virtually to support her in such launching. A part of being an entrepreneur and also being an academic and a scientist, she also does other activities such as yoga, swimming, and also developing herself in different areas. She's also very active on LinkedIn, posting up to 3 to 4 times a week, talking about helping PhDs to move into the industry and also building a bridge between those who want to move from the academia to the industry. And she mentors young people as well, which is very, very fantastic. And that is actually why she's here, so that we can benefit from her wealth of experience in these areas. But before I hand over to Dr. Lena, I just want to highlight, make some announcements concerning, oh, you can actually contact Dr. Lena through LinkedIn. If you search her name, you should be able to find her, or you can use the link on the screen to actually find her. For those of you who were thinking what was psoriasis and vitiligo, I just tried to put some image. The first image here is a picture depicting psoriasis, and the second one is an image showing someone suffering from vitiligo. It could be a disfiguring uh, condition, which is why the research Dr. Elena does is very, very wonderful. If they can discover how to block, such inflammatory activity, that would be very, very wonderful. So in the new year, we announced Zeribe Nwosu scholarships. And one good thing about this scholarship, we've added many more scholarships to this Zeribe Nwosu scholarship, of which one of them, this one is the initial one we started with, which is the undergraduate to postgraduate transition scholarships, in which those either in second year or fourth year in Nigeria higher educational institutions, undergraduates, will be able to apply for this. The application is still open, and we close on April 1. So you still have, if you're preparing to apply, you still have up to 2 months or even more than that. So make sure you share that with those who you think could benefit from this, so that they can apply. And then we've got artificial intelligence and data science is a new scholarship that was introduced this year. And there are 3 awards, and this is actually open to undergraduate students towards the end of their degree program, up to those who graduated from the university up to 1 year. So, which means it's more open to more people to benefit from this. So if you think you can benefit from the scholarship under artificial intelligence or data science, you can apply. The closing date is also April 1st. And after then, we'll be able to review that to select those for interview. And then we've got the online scholarship. The idea for this particular scholarship is it's not just about Nigerian females alone. It happens, globally, especially when they've given birth, they've taken maternity leave. Sometimes that career break can actually be something that could affect their career. But this type of scholarship, which they can do online within the comfort of their homes, which means even during maternity leave, they will be able to do this kind of activity and be able to cover such gaps. So that is something females in Nigeria could benefit from, provided you also provide detailed information on why you think you are the best candidate for that. We'll also review that. And the closing date for this one is actually March 1st and not April 1st. So don't mix it up, because you could actually miss out if you think it's also April 1st. So that is the scholarship announcement I wanted to make. For those of you who are joining us this year for the first time, I say Happy New Year, and you can as well contact us using these links here. You can send us email, or you can find more information about Zeribe Nwosu Foundation by going to the website. You can follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel of the foundation, or follow the Facebook page, or actually join us in Telegram, where we have over 2,000 members already benefiting from all the activities we do, from seminars to workshops to meet the mentor series, CV reviews, providing opportunities, sharing opportunities which people can benefit from. So you can join us, follow us on LinkedIn and also on the Instagram, and to be sure you are able to get information firsthand as we share them each day. So thank you for joining us once again.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for the nice introduction and thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here today and talk a little bit about one of the topics I'm really passionate about, and I hope it will provide some value to you guys. Zeribe told me some of you are PhDs, some of you are graduate students, some of you are maybe undergrads, so I tried to keep it a little bit overall general on how to transition to industry. My focus right now is to help PhDs in their transition from academia to industry, but I'm sure there is something for everyone in this presentation. Let me see. So what are we going to talk about today? I made a little agenda. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit how I got the chance to be here today, and then we will look a little bit into how can you identify your interests, your values, and how they can really align with positions in industry. How do you craft a non-academic resume, so an industry resume, because I think this is one of the hardest challenges, especially for PhD students when they leave from academia into industry. How you can build a network in real life and in online, and how you can actually prepare for the interview if you land one. So I want to start with this slide to kind of show you, I don't know wherever you are in your career. I mean, I can tell you I got my PhD with 33. So whenever you think you're maybe too old or you're too late, forget about it. It's never too late. But also, I just want to show you that I also took a very non-linear path compared to a lot of other people that I have done my PhD with. So there are a lot of different ways one can take to get wherever you want to go. And I took a little bit of a detour to get my PhD. So when I finished high school, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? So I did an apprenticeship, I guess it's called, as a pharmaceutical technical assistant. I worked in a pharmacy for half a year. Then I moved to industry, and I worked in a lab in the industry for 1 year. I felt quite underwhelmed while I was doing that work because, you know, it was like following a protocol. So you really didn't have to use your brain too much. And I was like, that's not for me. I want to think more. I want to do something. So I decided to study or go to university and study in my bachelor's and in my master's pharmaceutical biotechnology. And then I kind of did a transition from pharmaceutical biotechnology, which is much closer to pharma and it's much more applied. I went into very basic science. I moved to Karolinska Institute in Stockholm and did a PhD in medical sciences in the field of immunology, where I was super interested in understanding whether T cells in the skin have a precursor cell, because the T cells are really responsible basically for they are the driver of different diseases, skin diseases like psoriasis and vitiligo. And when you eradicate them, or when you treat patients, it tends to come back at the same spot, indicating that there's some sort of memory, but also that something is actually surviving the treatment. So I was looking into whether there is a subset that might be more resilient or lower differentiated, meaning it would be maybe have better survival capabilities compared to other T cells. And I do love science a lot, and I really loved the process of doing a PhD. It was quite stimulating in many ways. I grew a lot. But I also realized sitting in the lab all day, every day is really not for me. So I'm a people person and I love to work with people. So what I did, I went on my own journey to see where I want to go. And I organized at the time at Karolinska Institute seminars, which were called PhD Careers Beyond Academia, where we really focused on showing other fellow PhDs the variety of positions they can take outside of academia. And yeah, I really liked that, and I really enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed helping other students to realize what their passion really is and what their potential really is. And well, this is how I came to co-found a company which is called Almami, and it's pretty new. It was registered beginning of the year in the US. And I would also describe myself as a content creator on LinkedIn, so I put it up there. So I just want to show you this because it really just shows there is no one path, and it doesn't always have to be a linear path. So I hope it just inspires you a little bit. Wherever you want to go, you can do it. So, but let's now focus on actually the how or what are steps to take. What would I recommend you to do if you're a PhD right now and you're thinking about transitioning into industry? So what I have realized, one of the things that we struggle the most with is that we don't have a network outside of academia. And if you're playing with the thought that you want to move into industry one day, I would actually really highly recommend you to try to establish a professional network outside of academia. And I know that's quite out of the comfort zone for most of us, but I can tell you a lot of PhDs, or in general, a lot of people find their job through networking or through referrals of people that they know. And now you might find, okay, it's not really easy for me when I'm in academia to actually build a network outside with people from the industry. But I'm also here as an example today to show you how you can build your own network outside. So there are different ways, of course, online or in real life. And online, I really do think LinkedIn is the best way to get started. I mean, I have started posting on LinkedIn. I mean, I would consider myself a content creator, or someone who maybe builds a professional personal brand. This is a really good way of getting exposure. This is, by the way, also how Zeribe found me. I think he saw one of my posts, and this is how he kind of got to know about me, and we got in contact, and this is how I could expand my network. So this is just a very nice example on how things can go. But yeah, LinkedIn is one option, but also there are a lot of like other professional forums or online sessions where you can actually participate. Just like today, I mean, this is kind of like a network opportunity, right? So, but I do think network is really important. That's why I want to actually start my presentation kind of emphasizing how important I think it is. And I know in real life, it might feel like it's a bit harder, but honestly, there are a lot of different networking opportunities out there. I do feel like a lot of PhDs are they need to be a bit more proactive in order to really guide their own career path. And I would really encourage you to just look for network opportunities also in real life. And there are a lot of events often organized by your university. So just, keep your ears or your eyes open. And another way on how I really extended my network is really getting involved in extracurricular activities. I have worked in 3 different organizations, and I really kind of could extend or expand my network by working in these different organizations and get to meet a lot of cool people from industry, but also within academia. So yeah, I think a network is super essential when you move out, or it can at least make your life so much easier. So let's say you're at the end of your PhD and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I have seen a lot of PhDs because we're going down the track. We do our bachelor's, we do our master's, we do our PhD, and we think, okay, some of us really have this like thought, I'm going to do a postdoc and then I'm going to go down the professor track. But for most of the people, it will unfortunately not work out. Just, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. There are not enough positions for all of us. But for a lot of PhDs, they never really thought about what they actually want to do with their life, because this is what they were focused on, right? They were doing their PhD and it was kind of clear what they will be doing after. And one way of really getting to start this process of finding out where you actually want to go in your life, if it's not academia, you can ask yourself 3 really, really, really powerful questions. And I think one of them is really, what do I love doing? And I think that's a very, very important one, because it shows, what am I enjoying doing? What are my strengths? What are the things when I feel like I'm in the flow? And I can give you an example. So for me, it was like, I loved science and I loved working in the lab and everything, but I really flourished when I interacted with people, or when I was in meetings and I never understood. Everybody always said, oh, meetings are so boring. And I really, really liked it. I liked to be in meetings. I liked to interact with people. It gave me a lot of energy. And also, I love to present. So being here with you today is really something I enjoy doing a lot. And then, of course, one question is, what am I good at? This is also something, you should ask yourself. Are you good at speaking, for example? Are you good at building relationships? So this is really where I see myself, and this is where I see this overlap between, what I love and what I'm good at. And I would just encourage you to maybe ask yourself these questions and think, what do I bring to the table? What are my skills? And then last but not least, of course, what can I be paid for? Because, you can love doing art and you can be really good at it, and maybe it's nothing you can be paid for. So in my case, I can just give you this as another example. I really love to work with people, with PhD students. And I think I'm also decently good at building relationships, presenting, and so on. So, well, I decided I will just build my own kind of thing where I can live all of these sides. Um, so basically, the combination of what you love and what you're good at and what you can be paid for gives you possible career paths. And I mean, there are a lot of different career paths out there, so it's really hard to narrow it down sometimes. And there is really no other good way than just, reading up on maybe open ads, or like open job ads, and just see, how is it described? What type of personality do I need to be in order to fit that position, and then really see, would this basically fit who I am and what I'm good at and what I love doing. But let's say you have identified possible roles that actually would fit you based on what you have read. A next logical step could really be to learn more about these possible career paths, right? And another really great way of doing this, not just only reading up, but also by actually talking to people who work in these roles, and really just, learn more about the role. What does a day-to-day look like? What type of skills do you need to bring to the table? Which type of skills could you take from your PhD and can now apply them in a new setting in industry? And this is also, like, here, a very good way of approaching this is by just simply going on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you can look for people. Let's say you're interested in becoming a medical science liaison. You can write it in the search field, and you can even filter by company, by location, and even by company. So you can actually specifically look for people that work in a specific role, in a specific place, in a specific company. And you can just reach out with a nice message and say, hey, I'm going to finish my PhD soon, and I'm looking into potential careers. And I would consider, for example, XYZ to be something that I could work in. Would you have like 15 or 20 minutes time for a chat? And here I would try to keep it to max 30 minutes, because people usually are very busy, and if you ask them in a nice way and you don't ask for too much time, they usually say yes. And what is really cool about this, if you do informational interviews properly, you can not only learn about the role, but you can also expand your network with that person. And I can tell you from a personal experience that I have heard from people that actually reached out to someone and said, hey, would you have time for a chat? They said yes, and then the person actually said, we have an open position. Would you be interested sending in your resume? So, I think the most important thing is to always just be open and see what can come next. And this is a slide I would actually like to include, because let's say you now have talked to someone and you have identified maybe a potential role or 3 potential roles that would fit you, and now you're thinking about applying for these jobs. And what I have also realized amongst PhDs, or in general a lot of graduates, there is a misconception that a recruiter and a hiring manager can be the same. And I have to tell you, I also didn't know the difference for a very long time. But in general, when you apply for a position, it will first go to a recruiter. And the task of a recruiter is to make the hiring manager's life easier. So the hiring manager communicates to the recruiter what type of person they're looking for. So the recruiter is in general less technical. So they don't understand as much of the technical side as the hiring manager does. You have to imagine, depending on the company, you have a recruiter and they recruit for many different positions, and they often don't have the technical understanding of specific roles. I do know of recruiters that have a PhD, for example, in the life science sector, they might know a little bit more. But just be aware when you phrase your non-academic resume, don't put a lot of technical jargon and try to phrase it in a way that everyone can understand, even if they haven't worked in that field. And then the hiring manager is the person, you can maybe imagine it as a PI who really understands the technical part of the role. And the hiring manager, so the recruiter will screen the people and will then give X amount of people forward to the hiring manager. The hiring manager will then go through and will interview a couple of people that he thinks might be suitable for the role. And the hiring manager is the primary decision maker. So generally, the recruiter and the hiring manager are both involved in the decision process. So the hiring manager talks to the recruiter, obviously, but the decision is made by the hiring manager. And I think it's just important to understand the difference, because it will help you once you go out and you write your non-academic resume with that in the back of your mind. You want to try to be less technical in general, because if it's too technical, the recruiter will not understand and will also think you're not capable of communicating your value in a way that it's understandable for everyone. I think that's a thing that we as PhDs do like to do a lot in general and overall. But this is, it doesn't only apply for PhD. Obviously, this is something that applies across the different levels. So let's say you found your role and you want to apply now. Then the next thing really would be start building your industry resume. And I have a couple of slides on the industry resume, because this is one of the things that I think most of the PhDs really, really struggle with, because when you come from an academic background, an academic CV is mostly, as you know, it serves the purpose to showcase what you have achieved in terms of publications, which awards and honors you got, or to which conferences you went, and so on, to really showcase how well you have done and what you have contributed in terms of impact to your field in terms of publications. It's a bit different in industry. In industry, people don't care really that much about all of these things, but what they care about is about the impact that you made with your work. And I want to walk you through a little bit. So generally, how I would build a non-academic resume is in the upper part, you have your contact information, and then you have below a professional summary. And the professional summary should be 2 to 3 sentences, and do not be generic. Really show your unique value in that summary. So the summary really serves to showcase, you can talk about achievements you made or something that makes you really stick out. And you have to think about, there is some sort of hierarchy to the structure, right? When you think about how people scan things, they start on the top. So the most important information should always be on the top. So the first thing they will read is the professional summary. So try to be really, use this, it's valuable space, and try to use it as such. And then the next, you want to have the skills listed, because the skills, when the recruiter goes over, generally they have between, recruiters, I don't know how much time they spend, but as a hiring manager, they usually go over, they spend maybe 30 seconds or a minute on your resume. So you really need to communicate quite clearly and concise. So after the personal summary, I would have a list of the skills, and they're generally try to focus on skills that are relevant to the position that you're applying to. I know that we like to, and I guess that's also something we learn in academia, show everything you have done, the more the better, because it just shows, that you can achieve things. But in industry, they hire you to get a job done. So they don't really care about everything else you have done. They just want to know, can you do the job? which means focus on skills that are relevant to the actual position. In the next section, you will talk about your experience. And here people say, but I don't have experience. I have only done a PhD. Well, honestly, I do think PhD is experience. And I mean, I made a post on this topic on LinkedIn. I think people have very different opinions, but for me, it's experience because, I mean, you plan everything yourself. It requires a lot of time management. It requires a lot of project management. It requires so many things to actually get that PhD. And I think what is very important in the experience section, don't describe what you did, but actually show what you did. So there is a kind of a recipe on how you can build this up. And generally it's an action verb, then you say what you did, and then you quantify the impact. So what you want to do when this resume lands on a hiring manager or at a recruiter's desk, you want them not to be able to guess, oh, okay, I can show you here as an example. She designed an algorithm to optimize power consumption in semiconductor devices, right? Now, what does that actually mean? What was the impact of what you did? What is the impact of your work? So you kind of leave this open to the person who is looking at your resume to kind of guess. What you could say instead of showing what the impact of your work really is like you developed an algorithm reducing energy usage by X%. There is a quantification. So developed is the action verb. You did an algorithm and you reduced the energy by X%. And this led to potential savings of 1.5 million annually. That's pretty clear. Another example could be analyze culture norms and classical literature regarding gender representation. Instead, you could say identified 5 different genders, specific biases in written language that can be leveraged to educate and reduce biases in different contexts. So this is kind of like a form that you want to use when you apply to industry. So you really want to show the impact of the work that you have done. Sorry, here, just the education section, the professional affiliations. Education, keep it really short. Honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, I have talked to hiring managers, they don't really care about the education as long as you can get the job done based on your experience. But of course, add it. But, you know, I see sometimes people spend half a page on education and it's just not that important. Optimally, an industry resume doesn't exceed 2 pages. So try to stay between 1 and 2 pages. Whereas, you know, when you think about an academic resume, depending on publications, it can be really, really long. So, and now let's say you actually managed to land an interview with your non-academic resume. And I think here it's really important to remember an interview is just a normal conversation. And maybe if you think about it as a normal conversation, it will take the pressure off. And once you get invited to the stage, or once you get to an interview or to the stage of an interview, the hiring manager is already kind of convinced that you can do the job. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting there, right? They read your resume and they kind of get to understand what you have to bring to the table. What is very important when you prepare for an interview, really get familiar with the company that you're applying for. I mean, look at their website and just see, you know, what are their values, what are they standing for, and why you could imagine working in there. Because this is something you want to find a company that kind of fits your values. And not just work for any company. And I really would read up on it because it can be something you can be asked about. What is it, or why do you want to work here? What is it about our company, actually? And I think an alignment in values is always a great answer. Also, remember when you go to an interview, it's not like a one-sided conversation. You're also there to kind of interview them because you also want to figure out, is this a place where I would like to work? Are the people that are in the company people that I would get along with? So the thing is, prepare questions when you go to the interview that you could potentially ask. It can be about values, it can be about leadership styles, it can be about a lot of things, but definitely bring some questions. Always a good question is, for example, also what are the possibilities for you know, professional development. And then I guess there are some pretty standard interview questions. Definitely get prepared for them. And maybe, just sit sometimes. It sounds a bit weird now, but maybe just, look what could be potential questions and then sit and maybe just film yourself or record yourself and see how you come across. And just because, rewatching it and then just redoing things and just practicing this type of way how to answer to a question can actually help you a lot to be confident in the actual real interview setting. Yeah, and then let's say you made it and they actually offer you the job. Then I think it's also something I would like to talk about is really negotiate your salary. It's nothing people will be surprised about. It's something that is absolutely expected. If you talk to hiring managers, they do expect you to negotiate your salary. So you're not supposed to walk in and just say, yes, I'm fine. But in order to really be able to negotiate your salary, there are a couple of things you need to prepare beforehand. So you really want to understand your worth. So let's say they write a range of salary in the ad, then it's all fine. But there are a lot of companies that actually will not write a range, a salary range in the ad. Then you might want to check, websites like Glassdoor, salary.com, or even LinkedIn. Look for similar positions in different companies and see what are they paying. One thing that is very important when you do that, remember that location matters a lot. So whether you will be employed in, somewhere in the middle of nowhere in a company, or you will be in California, there will be a huge difference in salary because they obviously want to adjust for the living cost in that area. So when you look for these things, always look for specific areas. That's very important. And then you want to know how can you place yourself in the salary band. So the salary band is basically the range. Let's say it's between 65K and 100K. And now you could be like, okay, but I don't really know where to put myself. So what I can tell you from what I have learned from my co-founder really is, who is a hiring manager, there are basically, if you think about the salary range here, you have the 10th percentile, the 25th percentile, then you have the median. So where you want to place yourself in the band depends a little bit on where your experience really lies. Let's say you bring 50% of the skills necessary, then you want to place yourself at around 50% of the salary, right? So you can kind of understand where you should put yourself and in which direction you could negotiate. Remember one thing, when you look at job ads, and this is specifically for women, as I have heard, I have never worked in hiring, but due to my co-founder, I get all these insights. So women tend to want to match 100% of the skills, whereas men are fine with matching 50% of the skills. And I just want to encourage you, when you match 100% of your skills, you're actually ready for a promotion. So this is not an ideal case. So you really want to apply also for positions where you don't match 100% of the skills. So you can actually, there is some sort of, room for development and growth. So if you match 60%, I would say just go and apply for the position. Yeah, that's something I really wanted to get out, because I think there's a huge difference, especially between men and women, how they look at this. And I have to tell you, I also always thought in the beginning you have to match 100% in order to be suitable for the job. But I have also learned now, if you match 100%, you're actually ready for going to the next stage, which makes sense, right? And then, guys, if you manage to get an offer that you're happy with, you will basically sign the offer. And yeah, I guess that would be the part where I would say all the best at the new job, and maybe get a little bit accustomed with business etiquette. So this brings me really to my last slide, and there are a couple of take-home messages that I would like to give you today. And it's really like, if you want to move outside of industry, start building a network really as early as possible. Don't start when you need a job. When you need a job, it's definitely too late. You already want to have these connections when you move out. And I mean, we talked about there are different ways you can really do it online from the comfort of your sofa. I have built a huge network just by sitting at home. Really get clarity around who you are and what your interests are. You will see when you understand what you enjoy doing, it will be much easier for you down the line to phrase in the resume why you are the right person for a position, because you have all the clarity around, it will be easy for you to justify why you are the right person to fill that position, because you have done all the reflection, and you know that this is something you're good at and you're naturally excelling in, and it's within your strength. And in general, it's really just prepare well. I mean, there is a lot of information out on the internet on how to write non-academic resumes, how to prepare for interviews. However, I know it's not that easy actually as it sounds now. That's also why we started building Alma-Me, who is actually supporting PhDs in that entire process of doing these things, because we have realized there is a huge, huge need. And write a great resume, rock the interview, and really know your worth. What I have seen so much is that PhDs go out and they just apply for everything because they feel like I have no worth, or I have nothing to give, and I should be grateful if anyone wants me. Nope. Stop that and just start thinking, what are the skills, what are the things that I can bring to the table, and articulate it in a way that the other side can see your value, show the impact that you have made with the work that you have done. And at the end, really believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, no one will do it. So yeah, I think that's really my message. And if you're interested in what we're doing, I mean, you can just check out our website, Alma-Me. It's really new, and we're working on it, still improving it. We do have a PhD community of, I think we're around 250 people in the community, all PhDs that want to transit from academia into industry. And it's just there to support each other, and, celebrate achievements, or share difficult situations and get maybe some advice on it. And yeah, if you want, check it out. And yeah, that's basically from my side, and I'm very happy to take any questions. And yeah, thank you very much for listening, and I hope it was insightful.
Okay, Dr. Elena, thank you for that detailed presentation, which is very, very wonderful, because for some of us, we get confused between CVs for the academia and then the resume for the industry. You highlighted about uh, putting numbers in what was done, which means the industries needs achievements. What have you done? They want to see outcome, because you don't just come in. It's business. So in business, it's about what you can bring. And something else you also mentioned, which I picked up, is about researching the company. So these are the key things we need to take note of. And before we call for questions, Dr. Zeribe, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I mean, I just want to say thank you to the speaker for a fantastic presentation, and you really succinctly presented how we got to connect. I am occasionally looking at stuff on LinkedIn, and I saw that you consistently post, this person consistently posts some really interesting stuff about careers in the industry, and I thought that this is something that we also want to emphasize. We're an educational foundation. We want to put a lot of energy on encouraging people to, go to school at all levels. But, we also want to understand and communicate that education is, once you're educated, you can actually unlock multiple doors. And I like what you emphasized, sometimes you really have to sit back and ask yourself what you really like as a person, and use that as a kind of flame to power the engine, of motivation for what you should do next. Because otherwise, you are doing these stuff, but you're not really excited about them. Yeah, you want to be happy. You want something that gets you up in the morning, keeps you excited, keeps you strongly motivated for the whole day, even when you know that there may be some bad days. So it is really nice. And I thank you again for accepting to come to speak on our platform.